Hello and welcome. We are hours away from an all-consequential US election. In matter of hours, Americans will turn up to poll centers and elect its next president of the United States. Will it be Vice President Kamala Harris or former President Donald Trump? We've seen polls where both the candidates are really, really close, especially as you've heard, or India today, it is all about the swing states and it's all about what goes down in Pennsylvania tomorrow. And joining us today for an exclusive ever, this is the first time ever that we have a senior advisor to President Biden speaking to any Indian news channel. This is going to be a mega exclusive for us. We are going to be speaking with Neera Tanden. And Neera Tanden is a senior advisor, domestic policy advisor to President Biden. She was a senior advisor and staff secretary in the White House and obviously has served in the Obama and in the Clinton administration. She's also very well known for running the think tank, and she was the president and CEO of the think tank, the Center for American Progress, that talks about domestic policies, crime, education, immigration, healthcare, all those issues that are very important for Americans who are going to vote in this election cycle. So, without further ado, let's welcome Neera Tanden for an exclusive interview. It is very, very interesting, Neera. Hours away from a presidential election, an all consequential presidential election, as an advisor in the White House to President Biden and as somebody who served in the Clinton administration, in the Obama administration, and running one of the most well-known think tanks here in Washington, D.C. What are your thoughts right now? Because everybody's saying this election is too close to call. How are you feeling?
Honestly, I'm feeling very positive. I'm cautiously optimistic. Some people say nauseously optimistic, but I say cautiously optimistic. I was out in North Carolina yesterday, and I was there last week, and I was in Georgia a couple of weeks ago, and I've been really focused on bringing out the Indian American community. And the excitement is very real. I do think a lot of people in our community feel a sense of pride that Kamala Harris, the daughter of Shamala Gapalan, is actually on the cusp of being president. And I was able to answer a lot of questions. And I just see that there's a lot of, just energy out there. So our Indian Americans are a crucial voting bloc. They are one of the largest ethnic minorities in Pennsylvania, for example, a very important state. But they're a very large voting bloc in Georgia and North Carolina. And I really think this election could be kind of the culmination of efforts for a long time to ensure our voices are heard.
You talked about Indian American voices. I've seen campaign buses go from DC to Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, from DC to North Carolina, with South Asians and Indian people volunteering and going and motivating voters to get out of their vote. Uh, President Trump, on the other hand, made a big deal not too long ago. He tweeted on Diwali and he talked about Indian Americans and Hindu Americans. And one of the things that we're trying to understand is how all of a sudden have Indian Americans become so central to both the campaigns? Can you shed some light on it? Is it because the election is too close and everybody wants to get Indian American voters to vote for them?
Well, I think Indian Americans, as I said, are a crucial voting bloc in a number of the swing states. And I think it makes sense that they're doing that. I will say, though, that Vice President Harris is not a newcomer to these issues. She celebrated the Diwali as she was growing up. She understands our community. As I said, her mother was Indian American. She's been to India. Her grandfather, as I'm sure everyone knows, her grandfather was a civil servant and active in the independence movement. So I really think that she understands, what it's like to have our experience. I was just talking about this the other day, which is, my parents came here when they were very young, seeking new life and new opportunity. My father came here for college. My mother came in her early 20s, just like Shamala Gaplin. And a lot of us have that experience of being, the immigrants ourselves or the children of immigrants whose parents sacrificed for them to have opportunities. And just think about that. Shamala Goplan came as a 19-year-old, and within a generation, her daughter could be president of the United States. That says so much about our community, but it also says so much about the country we are. And I think what's crucial in this election is whether we're going to be really a country for all of us, where Shamala Goplan's daughter can be president, or it's really a country for just some of us. Because I do think Donald Trump has a very restrictive view of who really is American. And that's why you saw last week, at the Madison Square Garden, attacks on Puerto Ricans, on Black people, on Jewish people. I just think it's a very restrictive view. And I'm only where I am because lots of people believe this country is for all of us, not just some of us.
Neera, very interesting points there. Now, you're somebody, and I say this with a lot of humility, will go probably as close to Vice President Harris as we can go. You've worked with her, you've known her all these years. Give us some sense of Vice President as a person that she is. We've seen her talk about a lot of stuff on the campaign trail, but from a personal experience, if you wanted to talk to us about who Kamala Harris is as a person, please tell us, what is she like a person? Is she, I mean, I don't know. I mean, is she as affable as she's seen on the video?
Yeah.
What are her attributes? Like, just tell us more about her.
So I think the great thing about Kamala, or like to say Kamala, is that she is who you see on TV. I can add a little bit more depth though. Like, I met her for the first time over a decade ago when she was the Attorney General of California. And and actually in our first conversation, we bonded over the fact that, her mom used to make chapatis, and, just remembering the smell of that in her house. But she is exactly who you see in this sense. She is fun. She is smart. She is a person who can prosecute a case. She's strategic. But she also understands that really politics is about people. I say one thing that is different from a lot of politicians. I've worked for some great political leaders. I feel very honored to have worked for the last 3 Democratic presidents, and they're all have incredible skills. But what's interesting about her as a leader is when you're talking about policy, she really wants to understand how it affects a person immediately. And I think that's because her experience as a prosecutor is very close to the ground. I think there are people who've been senators whose experience is to vote on legislation. As a prosecutor and attorney general, she was really responsible for results. So, are you keeping people safe? Basically, how does your actions translate into people's lives? So when we're talking about childcare policy or prescription drugs, it's not just about passing the legislation. It's, she really bears down on, when is it going to help somebody? How is it going to help somebody? How does it help a middle-class family, a family that's struggling? And I think it's hard to get across that in a campaign, but that is really, I started to work, I started my career working for Bill and Hillary Clinton. And she reminds me a lot of how both of them think about policy, which is just, what are the brass tacks way it's going to help people?
Now, a lot of people in India watching this have said, who is going to be better for India, right? I mean, is it Donald Trump? Is it Vice President Kamala Harris? What would you like to tell them?
I'd say that if we elect Kamala Harris tomorrow, we will have the first president ever who visited India as a child, who has Indian relatives, who experienced what it's like to really know India from that perspective, not just as a geopolitical ally, but really from the bottom up. I mean, I feel like I have a different kind of sense of India myself, from having gone there every few years, talking to my relatives, seeing my WhatsApp with all my Indian relatives on it. You just experience things in a very different way. And I think her added understanding of India from that perspective will be is an unfathomable asset in the bilateral relationship between the United States and India. And I think India will be very proud to have a daughter of India as president of the United States.
One last question. I know everybody is going to Pennsylvania. What are you doing between now and results come out? Where will you be? What are you doing to make sure you guys do everything you can to elect her?
Well, I'm heading out to York, Pennsylvania this afternoon to get out the vote to canvass. I really think this election is crucial. It's every vote counts, and really it's up to all of us. So I've been out. As I said, I was in Georgia, and I've been north to North Carolina a couple of times, and now I'm heading out to Pennsylvania, and I'll be in Pennsylvania tomorrow as well to get out the vote and to really, there are people who have some last minute questions, answering every question. We are earning every vote in this election. Kamala Harris is earning every vote, and so we're all out hitting the pavement for her to really grasp this moment. And I think, again, I would just say I think the election really does boil down to, for the Indian American community and for all communities, whether all of our voices will be part of this or whether just some of our voices will be heard. And we've all lived through periods where there's more bias and anger, and then there's periods where we feel more welcome. And I just think, we stand at a moment where Indian American voices will not just be heard, but will roar in this election.
I did say one last question. I do have one more now.
Sure.
How's President Biden looking at this, election cycle? I know, he made the move. He stepped out of the race. What are his thoughts? Because you are an advisor to the president.
I am.
So tell us, what is he thinking? What's going on in the White House? Give us some details. What are they
Yeah,
thinking?
I'm happy to do that. The president is really proud of the vice president. As he said, he was a vice president. He knows every vice president, every vice president who runs is their own person. She will have her own policies, but I think he's incredibly proud of her, and he wants nothing more than her to succeed. I think he thinks it was a great decision to select her as vice president, and I think he really does. He's first in line as her fan, but also recognizes she will have a different presidency. She has additional advisors. She's running her own race. And I think that's really the position of respect that he has for her.
Okay, Neera, thank you so much. We'll let you go, and I'll leave the last, platform to you. Do you want to say anything in Punjabi to the Punjabi voters out there?
I'd be so worried about getting it wrong. Oh my God. And then it'd be like,
I'll give you a word. It's
disaster.
called Chak De Fatte, which means, do what you can. Can you do that? I don't know if you want to.
Excellent. Excellent. Check the birthday. Or
All right,
I
Neera.
like to say, go fight, win.
All right, thank you so much, Neera. We hope to speak with you after the election. Good luck with your campaigning in Pennsylvania, and we'll be in touch. Thank you so much for doing this.